Welcome to AITS podcast on AI security. In this episode, you will learn about reconnaissance in AI systems. Happy learning.
All right, strap in everyone, because this time we're taking a deep dive into AI security, and I'm talking about how attackers are really getting in and doing some damage. We've got our hands on some seriously interesting stuff, excerpts from a training module called Reconnaissance in AI Systems. And let me tell you, it is eye-opening, to say the least.
It's a bit like peeking behind the curtain, isn't it? And what we find is it's not some Hollywood hacker in a dark room, frantically typing code. It's often way more organized, automated even, all designed to find those cracks in AI systems.
Right, so before they even try to break in, there's a whole stage of just scoping things out.
Exactly, and that's where active scanning comes in.
Active scanning. Sounds intense.
Think of it like casing the joint digitally. Before you even think about robbing a bank, you'd want to know the layout, security measures, all that, right? Active scanning is the same idea, except instead of blueprints, they're after open ports, what services are running, even what operating system is in place, anything to build a picture of the target.
So it's like instead of jiggling doorknobs, they're pinging every digital entry point they can find.
You got it. Every single open port, that's a potential way in. Let's say, for example, they're going after a hospital, one using those AI diagnostic tools.
Okay, scary but relevant example.
Right. So they scan the network, find a vulnerable port, and suddenly they're in a position to, who knows, deliver malware, or even worse, get their hands on patient records.
Okay, so finding open ports is bad news. But there's more to it than that, right? Just because a door's unlocked doesn't mean you can just waltz in.
Exactly. That's where service and version detection come into play. They're not just looking for open doors. They want to know what kind of lock is on that door.
So they're figuring out what software is running on those open ports.
And more importantly, are there any known vulnerabilities in that version? Like, imagine knowing the exact make and model of the lock on that open door.
Makes their job a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
So let's say they find an older version of, TensorFlow serving on a system. They can basically just Google how to exploit that.
You're catching on fast. There are entire databases dedicated to tracking known vulnerabilities, and they're public. So attackers can just waltz right in and use that information to their advantage.
So it's this constant race against time, developers trying to patch vulnerabilities before the bad guys can exploit them.
Exactly. And when you're talking about something like TensorFlow serving, the stakes are huge. A vulnerability there could let them actually manipulate the AI model itself. Imagine the chaos that could cause.
Okay, now that is a truly chilling thought.
And then, on top of all of that, there's OS fingerprinting.
OS fingerprinting. That sounds even more technical. What's going on there?
It's all about building as complete a profile of the target as possible. By analyzing the digital fingerprint of a system, attackers can pinpoint exactly which operating system it's running.
And once they know that, they can tailor their attack even more specifically.
Precisely. Choose the exploits that work best against that particular OS, pre-built tools, that sort of thing. It's all about efficiency and maximizing their chances of success.
So it's not just about brute force. It's about precision, being smart about it.
Exactly. They're gathering intel, planning their attack carefully, and they're not just going to go after any old data. They're looking for the most valuable stuff.
Okay, so they've scanned the system, identified the weak points, figured out the software and operating system. What exactly are they hoping to find? What's the end goal of all this reconnaissance?
Well, it all comes down to data, right? But it's not about quantity, it's about the type of data, how valuable it is to them.
All right, let's talk data then. What kind of information are these attackers really after?
One of the biggest things they go after is network topologies. Think of it like the blueprint of the entire system's infrastructure, how everything connects, where the data flows, all of that.
So they're mapping out the network, looking for the path of least resistance.
Exactly. Like, imagine they're targeting an e-commerce platform, right? Instead of trying to brute force their way into the payment gateway, which is probably heavily guarded, they might go after something like the recommendation engine, which might not have the same level of security.
Sneak in the back door, so to speak.
Right. And from there, they could potentially manipulate product suggestions, push their own products, disrupt a competitor's sales, all sorts of nasty stuff.
Okay, so they've got their map of the network. They know where the weak points are. What's next? How do they actually get in and start causing trouble?
Well, this is where things get really interesting and honestly a little scary. It all comes down to vulnerabilities. Attackers are always on the hunt for those hidden flaws in software, the ones they can slip through.
And how easy is it to find these vulnerabilities? Asking for a friend.
Probably easier than you'd think. Remember those public vulnerability databases we talked about? Gold mines for these guys.
Because new vulnerabilities are being discovered all the time.
Oh yeah, constantly. And often they come with a handy little guide on how to exploit them.
So it's this never-ending game of cat and mouse, developers trying to patch holes before the attackers can find them.
Exactly. And when we're talking about AI, the stakes are even higher. I mean, one vulnerability in a popular machine learning framework, that could have massive ripple effects. Just imagine, what if an attacker got a hold of a flaw in, say, a widely used image recognition library?
Let me guess. Self-driving cars start going haywire.
That's one possibility. Or think about medical imaging. They could inject malicious code, make the AI misinterpret images. It could have serious real-world consequences.
Okay, this is getting a little too Black Mirror for me.
And then there's the classic, phishing. Except it's not so classic anymore. Phishing's gone high-tech, especially when AI is involved.
So no more Nigerian prince emails.
Well, those still exist, but attackers have upped their game. They're using everything available to them, like those same vulnerability databases, to craft these super convincing phishing attacks. Say they find a new vulnerability in a specific AI framework, right? They could create a phishing email that looks exactly like it's from the developers, even down to the branding.
A fake security alert, maybe? Telling everyone to update their software immediately.
Bingo. But the link they provide leads straight to a malicious site. Or they might impersonate a colleague, reference a project you're working on, anything to make it look legit. And social media, oh, they love social media. They can use that to gather all sorts of personal details, tailor their attacks even further.
So let's say someone's profile mentions they're working on a specific type of AI model. Suddenly they're getting targeted with these hyper-realistic phishing emails that are almost impossible to resist.
Exactly. And it's not just individuals they're after. They target entire organizations involved in AI development. Think about the damage they could do if they get into a company's systems. Steal sensitive data, proprietary algorithms, even the AI models themselves.
The crown jewels of the AI world, gone. And this is all actually happening, right? This isn't some hypothetical scenario.
Oh, absolutely. There have been cases where phishing attacks have led to massive data breaches, including training data for AI models. And that data, that's incredibly valuable. It can be used to train competing models or even reverse engineer the original and find its vulnerabilities.
So phishing, it's like the skeleton key that unlocks a whole world of trouble. But it's often just the first step for these attackers, right?
Yeah.
What happens once they're past the initial defenses? What are they really after?
It's like this. They've managed to slip in the back door. Now they want to take over the whole house. And the tactics they use, well, those depend on what they're after.
Okay, so let's walk through some of those scenarios.
Yeah.
What are some of the bigger attacks that might be in motion once that phishing hook is set?
Credential harvesting is a big one. Sounds pretty basic, right? But you'd be surprised how effective it still is.
People still fall for giving up their login details.
Oh, all the time. And that one slip up can give attackers access to all sorts of systems. We're talking about those cloud environments where all those valuable AI models are trained and stored, things like that.
And I bet those cloud environments, they're like juicy targets, right? Full of valuable data.
You better believe it. And here's the thing, a lot of organizations, they haven't quite figured out the whole cloud security thing yet. So we've seen cases where one phishing attack, just one, leads to a massive data breach. I'm talking mountains of training data, entire AI applications, all because someone clicked the wrong link.
It really goes to show no matter how strong your tech defenses are, human error is always going to be that weak link.
Exactly. And then there's good old-fashioned malware. Don't think those malicious attachments and phishing emails have gone anywhere.
You're saying they're still a thing?
Oh yeah, but they've evolved. We're not just talking about some basic password stealer anymore. This stuff is designed to target AI specifically.
So malware that can, infiltrate a system, steal data, even mess with the training data used for AI models.
You're getting it. Imagine the chaos if someone could manipulate the very core of how these systems learn and make decisions. And as AI gets more integrated into everything, healthcare, finance, transportation, you name it, the potential for damage just keeps growing.
Okay, now this is starting to feel like something out of a sci-fi thriller.
And we can't forget about social engineering. That takes on a whole new level of devious in the AI world. Picture this attacker uses phishing to gain access to an employee's email account at an AI company.
Okay, I'm already nervous.
Now they can impersonate that employee, send convincing emails to colleagues, even the ones working on those really sensitive AI systems. Right. They might ask for access to a confidential project, try to get someone to run a malicious script, or even convince someone to just hand over the latest version of a proprietary AI model.
And because it's coming from a legitimate account, no one suspects a thing.
Exactly. That's what makes social engineering so dangerous. It all comes down to trust.
So what can people even do to protect themselves? It feels like a losing battle.
It doesn't have to be. A lot of it comes down to awareness, education, building a culture of security within organizations, especially the ones developing or using AI.
So knowing your enemy, understanding their tactics, that's half the battle right there.
Absolutely. The more people know about these tactics, the better equipped they'll be to spot these attacks before it's too late. Knowledge is power, especially in the world of cybersecurity.
Well, I gotta say, this has been a crash course in the dark arts of AI security. Eye-opening, but a little unnerving.
It is a lot to take in, that's for sure. But that's why we do this deep dive. Shine a light on these threats, get people thinking about how to protect themselves, because the world of AI security, well, it's not slowing down anytime soon.
And that's a fact. So until next time, everyone, stay safe, stay informed, and keep those digital defenses strong.
Thank you for listening to this episode of AITS Podcast on AI Security. If you would like to learn more or would like to have a session for your team, please drop us an email on training@alasad.cloud. Learn more about us on our website, alasad.cloud, that is ALASAD, CLOUD.